Welcome to the final chapter of the Super Brawl Retrospective. In the first part, we looked at the origins of the Nickelodeon Brawl franchise with Super Brawl 1 and 2. Then, we looked at the strange, awkward era of Super Brawl 3 and 4, where the series kinda lost its footing in my opinion. Today, we will look at the modern chapter of the series. You see, there are 3 games that have a seemingly larger scope to them, and are the current end of the franchise. These games are Super Brawl World, Super Brawl Universe, and the upcoming All Star Brawl. Without further ado, let's take a look at the final browser game released in the series, Super Brawl World. Released a year after Super Brawl 4, Super Brawl World was a bit of a shift in direction from the previous titles. Instead of being a merely arcadey style fighting game, mechanics were added to make the game rewarding to come back to. The game very much seems like they knew it was the end of the franchise on Flash, and wanted to make a game that would last while also functioning as a proper send-off to the game. However, from what I can tell, people's thoughts on this game are divisive, to say the least. Some people think it's the best one since Super Brawl 2, and some think it's the worst in the series, even worse than Just Got Real and 4. But what makes this game so controversial? Let's talk about it and find out. As always, the roster this time around is still pretty solid. You have SpongeBob, Patrick, Timmy Turner, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Skywhale, Henry Danger, the Red and Pink Rangers, Lincoln and Lewin Loud, Clyde, Phoebe Thunderman, Bunsen, Ollie, Alvin, and Invader Zim. Admittedly, I'm not super familiar with a lot of the characters, but there's enough here I am familiar with, and I wasn't really watching Nick at the time this game came out, so I'm definitely not the target demographic. However, the roster is certainly quite large. There's also a new mechanic called Brawl Calls, which allow you to select an assist super, essentially. There's some great references here, either expanding the franchises with characters like Flying Dutchman or Shinigami, or some more obscure callbacks like the Log from Ren and Stimpy, and even Jingle Brawl and Just Got Real SpongeBob. It's really cool seeing acknowledgement of the past games. Speaking of, the stage list contains stages from all previous games and some original ones. The stages you get are random, but it's a neat callback. One weird thing is that the music on these stages feel like they loop awkwardly, but it's a minor thing in the grand scheme of things. The modes in this game are very interesting, and break a series staple. While free play is still in and works mostly the same, tournament mode is gone. Instead, you have Brawlville PvP, a pseudo-online mode where you play against other players' mains and teams. While this seems like it would be a really pointless addition, character customization was added to the game. Because of this, other players can encounter your customized character, providing a bit of depth. By winning enough matches, you get chests that give you customization items. These chests get less and less frequent the further up you go, but reset every week, so you'll always be getting new items frequently until you get all of them. The one thing that I don't like about this system is that items are not distributed equally. Characters like SpongeBob naturally have a ton of customization, but the Power Rangers only have one hat, one top, and one bottom, which is unlocked from the start and gives them a massive stat boost. Oh yeah, the gear also has stats, but it's not really as big of a deal as it seems. The game is reasonable enough you can win without any gear. The last mode is Brawl TV, a mode where you can watch AI-controlled matches. There's not really a point to this mode, but it's very funny that it exists. I guess you could use it like Salty Bet among friends, and for that reason it's kinda cool, but matches just take ages in this mode, so it's not quite worth it. Oh yeah, one more thing, which is the elephant in the room. There is zero way to fight real humans in this game. This has been a recurring flaw of the series, so I don't mind it, and I actually am okay with the little interaction with other players it provides. However, there is a very real chance that these are made-up players, which, considering how blatant another game, which we'll get to, is with that, would not surprise me. Still, here it did its job of at least giving the illusion of encountering other players. We haven't really quite hit why this game is controversial yet, so let's get into it. Like Super Brawl 4, this is yet another one-button fighter. Spacebar is an auto combo for every character, which is their only meterless attack option. You cannot attack in the air whatsoever, which is lame. However, they did increase footsies somewhat by adding a forward and back dash, but air-to-airs and jump-ins are still not a thing. Each character also has a special move which costs 25% of their meter, and the Brawl Call that costs the full meter. Brawl Calls tend to be very situational, but work in a pinch. Specials, however, are what make the game a bit better than the other mashy games. Specials in this game are incredibly useful, as even with the low hit stun of this game, rushdowns generally have an invincible special that can punish people who mash out a block. I'm gonna be contrarian yet again, and say, in all honesty, this system isn't entirely terrible. Sure, I'd love to have multiple attack buttons and actual hit stun, but for what the game's trying to be, it does work well, and for one big reason. This game, compared to the others, got way more creative with auto combos. Let's take a look at a specific character for a second, Invader Zim. His auto combo consists of throwing a mini moose, then shooting some lasers, and finally finishing off with a flurry of stabs. Zim is inherently a zoner because the first 2 hits of his auto combo will whiff if an opponent is on top of him. This means that Zim has to try to keep space as much as he can, which he's able to do if he uses the meter to use his special to blow people backwards. Despite only truly having 2 moves, this is way more depth than 4 or even 3 had. It feels like there's some actual thought put into the limited movesets, and I'm very happy with that. However, not all characters are created equal, as some characters like Clyde have pitiful range and little benefit in terms of speed or frame data to compensate. However, a good chunk of the cast has at least something fun to mess with, like Lincoln's Crazy Normals or Red Ranger's Rekkas. Overall, I think Super Brawl World does its job in being a celebration of the series as a whole. A lot of the good aspects are here, but they are compromised with some of the rougher aspects of the franchise. Together, they make something that's fine. Not great, not awful, but fine. If you're looking for something mindless and fun to play for a few minutes, consider giving this one a try. Just don't come into it expecting anything masterful. There is one more final thing I would like to mention before we leave the browser era. A lot of people were asking me how they could play these games now that Flash is dead. There's a program called Flashpoint Infinity that has an archive of pretty much every browser game. Flash, HTML, Java Web, you name it. The entire Super Brawl series up to this point is playable there, so give it a look if that interests you. With that, let's leave the browser and head to a much more controversial platform, the smartphone. Super Brawl Universe is the first and only mobile adaptation of the series. This game also seems to be very controversial, and I think I have a good understanding of why. The game is competent for what it is, but what it is doesn't exactly feel like Super Brawl. Let me explain. Super Brawl Universe takes a very interesting art direction for the series, being the first 3D title. Personally, I think this is somewhat hit or miss. Some characters look solid enough, like Jenny or Zim, but then you have characters like SpongeBob who look super off. There's another reason why the 3D models are a bit fishy, but we'll touch on that later. Overall though, the initial visual impressions are fine enough. As soon as you open the game though, something feels a bit off. The game introduces you to the controls. You can tap to do a light attack, which is essentially an auto combo. Swiping does a medium, which brings you up to the opponent. Holding light for a bit does a heavy attack, which breaks blocks. You can backdash and block by swiping and holding the left of the screen. Finally, you have a super that can be done after filling up meter. Does any of this sound familiar to you? If you've ever played a mobile fighting game before, it probably does. It's Marvel Contest of Champions, aka Injustice Mobile, aka Mortal Kombat Mobile, aka the formula that Skullgirls Mobile has already perfected. Point is, this has been done by hundreds of games before, and the only thing that makes it stand apart are the Nickelodeon characters. Speaking of, how are the characters this time around? Well, there's quite a lot. Over 35. Characters such as SpongeBob, Abrasive SpongeBob, the Quickster, Reptar, Purple Reptar. I think you see the problem. There's a lot of clones. Taking those out though, the roster is still okay. SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, Squidward, Arnold, Helga, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Tommy, Angelica, Reptar, Lincoln and Luna Loud, Clyde, Rocco, Heifer, Zim, Gur, Aang, Cora, Timmy Turner, Danny Phantom, CatDog, Jenny, and Kid Danger are all playable. One thing that comes to mind is that the roster has a lot more legacy franchises rather than just what was popular on Nick at the time. The reason for this is kinda obvious though. Children probably won't be spending the big bucks on this game. It's gonna be adults grinding their favorite characters. That's right, there's a good chance you won't see half of these characters, because this is a gacha game. Better hope you get lucky with your favorites. But how do you actually play this game? The game itself is split into 3 modes. A story mode where you spend energy to play battles to gain items and level up your characters, an arena mode where you play against other quote-unquote player-created teams and get rewards, and an event mode where you get rewards for playing under certain conditions, such as using a particular character. All 3 of these modes are okay, but very grindy. Gone are the days of hopping in to kill 10 minutes or so. This game demands you grind, which for some people may be what they're looking for. It's just not in line with the other games. But what are you grinding for? Aside from just getting new characters and leveling up to make them stronger, you can unlock abilities for each character. However, unlike nearly every other game in this genre, these abilities seem bafflingly random. Stuff like Jenny's notable round start invincibility or Patrick's damage on block. Things that don't really make much sense whatsoever. These abilities can still be fun, but it's just hard to see the resemblance to the characters. You can get character shards and upgrade materials through chests. There are 3 types. Timed chests, which are obtained after verses and take a few hours to open. These can be sped up with ads if you want to for some reason. Versus chests are obtained after winning enough versus matches. They unlock for free after with little hassle. You can also purchase special chests, which can be bought with batteries obtained from story mode, or diamonds. Diamonds are where this game gets ruthless. While they aren't technically needed, items that cost diamonds are ludicrously expensive, and the game gives you about 10 a day. So generally, you need to spend some money if you want to use them, which again, I would not recommend. If you understand the risks of the grind, then by all means, try it if you're interested. It's not bad, just kinda generic. However, if you plan on sinking time into the grind, know what you're grinding for. As I alluded to before, I'm not convinced that the other players in this game are real. Obviously, you only encounter them in AI matches, but it's not even just that. AI opponents have utterly bizarre and straight up impossible teams, like a low-level Avatar State Aang, which should not be obtainable at that level. Furthermore, I swear I've seen the game straight up change my opponent's name mid-menu. With no opponents, you aren't grinding to prove a point or to reach the top, you're just playing for your own satisfaction and just to grind. Remember that. With all that said, this was the fate of the franchise for quite some time. Stuck in the limbo of a mediocre mobile game. Not abhorrently bad, but certainly not great either. And then, Nickelodeon just abandoned the franchise, leaving it to rot. Until this year, when Nickelodeon All Star Brawl took the spotlight. Nickelodeon All Star Brawl is an upcoming console game published by Game Mill Entertainment and developed by Ludosity. While I can't give a full description of the game quite yet, seeing as it's, well, not out, the game already shows a lot of promise. For one, the game is seeing a lot of important FGC wants added to the game, such as post-release support and rollback netcode. The roster is all over the place in a good way, with shoo-ins like SpongeBob and Lincoln Loud mixed in with crazy left field picks like Powdered Toast Man. However, I have heard a lot of people worried that this game won't be good, thanks to Game Mill's reputation for publishing licensed titles that are average. However, allow me to ease your fears by briefly talking about Ludosity's previous title. Now, this isn't a Nick game, but bear with me. It's important to understand, trust me. With all that said, get ready to engage in the greatest discourse in Slap City. Slap City is one of my favorite platform fighters, and some of that is because it takes a different direction than other games in the genre. You see, a lot of games try to compete with Smash Bros. By creating a game with mostly competitive balance in mind. Rushdown Revolt, Rivals of Aether, heck, even Brawlhalla are more focused on the competitive experience. While Slap City is also competitively viable, it understands the casual fun that comes with the genre better than any other platform fighter I've played, including Rivals and Smash. The one sacrifice Slap makes is its roster. While diverse, there are only 9 characters. These characters come from Ludosity's previous titles, and they're all weird and wacky in a super charming way. From a flaming goddess who throws Ganon-style explosive tennis balls, to a weightlifting fish thing. There's a lot to enjoy. I don't know if this will carry over to Nick All Star Brawl though, as we've already seen nearly double the amount of characters. One thing that I do know that's carrying over is the stages. While the game has no shortage of competitively viable stages, there's a lot of crazy gimmick ones that exist because, hey, why not? My favorite of these is Bumper Town, a stage that takes place inside a giant pinball machine. If you get hit once, you'll be sent all over the place. And while the stage generally gives you enough control to stay alive, avoiding getting comboed or whiffing your punish to get stuck in the bumper is tricky and very fun. There's a ton more like it too, from an office building on a highway to a bus. The gameplay is incredibly solid too. Being a paid title and not a free flash game, the game boasts full movesets for every character. This includes normals, specials, grabs, and strong attacks in the way you'd expect them. There is no dash attack in Slap City, which simply gives you easier access to your forward tilt. However, every character has one strong attack that they can do in the air for some cheeky kills. There's tech like wave dashing and the like, but the real focus of the tech is the clutch button. By holding clutch, you can cancel landing lag and prevent certain things such as fast falling and character-specific resource use. What makes clutch so crazy to mess around with though, is that pushing clutch on certain moves causes you to perform the move while turning around, keeping your momentum but changing its direction. Even at low level, it's a fun mechanic to play around with and encourages this idea of, how fast can I go? Point is, the mechanics are super solid. While I'm sure you get an idea of how good Ludosity is at platform fighters, there's one thing we haven't touched on yet: the modes. All of the standard modes are available, training, online, versus, the works, but there's a few more interesting modes too. These include a volleyball mode I didn't get footage of, oops, a full story mode with both versus matches and adventure stages, with different paths for every character, an arcade mode with minigames like Slap the Crystals and shooting hoops, and a bunch of hidden stuff like fighting broken AI opponents that can kill you in one hit. It's all super cool, and it's easy to tell a lot of love was put into this game. If you've never played it, I highly recommend checking it out. So that was a brief rundown of Slap City, but why did I bring all that up? Well, All Star Brawl seems to be running on a modified version of the Slap City engine, so things will be similar. We already know mechanics like wave dashing are still in, and that the game will be simpler and faster compared to Slap City. Other than that though, we don't know too much about the gameplay, but we can take some things from Slap. The main thing is Ludosity knows how to make a game interesting at all levels of play. While we don't even know about any single player modes, even if there are none, we've already got a glimpse of some of the wacky stage gimmicks Ludosity is bringing to the table. And with all that we've seen, the game is bound to be a good time. I wish I had more to say about All Star Brawl itself, but we really don't know too much. All I can say is that it's a spark of hope for a brighter future for the series. And with that, our little retrospective is finally wrapped up. Starting from a cult classic Flash game and falling into a realm of obscurity fighting for its former identity, we finally have the game that could save the series. I'll definitely be sure to cover All Star Brawl more on the channel when it finally releases, so stay tuned for that. Until then though, I just want to say thank you for all the support on the Nick Brawl content. I've been considering doing one more video in honor of that, which is a Super Brawl 2 tier list. Would you be interested? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, thank you yet again for all the support, and I'll see you next time.